Hello BSS, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here then just welcome. Hi, my name is Brenda. I do paranormal videos here on my channel, so if that is something that you are interested in, please consider subscribing down below and turn on your post notifications so you do not miss when I post another video like this one. Now with all of that being said, let's go ahead and get right into today's video. Hello everybody! I am so sorry that I have been MIA, but happy October. We are finally in Spooktober mode. Spooky season is here. What we've all been waiting for, of course. I have started since September. I got my pumpkin cream cold brew, my pumpkin spice latte. I have been doing all of the works to get myself into that spooky mood. And for all of these videos in October, I will also be wearing all of my spooky t-shirts, of course, which you can't always see because of my lovely microphone here. But today I'm wearing this new Scream t-shirt. Let me show you guys real quick. Isn't that so cool? I love this shirt. I just got it at my first trip to Spirit Halloween. But anyway, I am so excited for these videos that are going to be going up in October. I am hoping that they all come out at the time that they're supposed to. I feel like October doesn't have, like, there's like not enough weeks in it for all of the spooky kinds of videos that I want to do. And I also was thinking like if I should do costumes for the videos, but at the end of September I was like, I'm not prepared at all. And this happens every single year where I'm like, I'm going to try to be more prepared for, you know, during this Halloween, then last Halloween, yada, yada, yada. And it's always pretty much the same. I did get a little bit more Halloween decor. I have like a couple little pumpkins here. I have my Mickey pumpkin and then these little streamers that are little pumpkin heads, just to, you know, be a little bit more festive. And I also got these little Halloween ears. Okay, now that I'm done showing off my entire thing that I put together, let's go ahead and get into today's topic, which is going to be about the Nahanni Valley and the mysterious deaths that have occurred there throughout all of these different centuries that people have tried to inhabit in the Nahanni Valley and the people that have passed throughout the years. I am going to be talking about one specific story, and then I'm going to be adding kind of little bits here and there about other deaths that have also occurred here at the Nahanni Valley that gave it its nickname and why people don't go there anymore to this date. As always, I'm going to have my notes here in front of me that I'm going to be reading off. A lot of my videos are podcast style. I know a lot of you guys have told me that you like the more natural storytelling where I just do it off the top of my head, but I am very, very bad at doing that. I have an awful memory, and every time that I try to, I miss a lot of details. I forget a lot of things, and then it takes me way longer to actually film because I pause a lot and I have to go back and look at notes to remember certain things, and it just takes me like 2 times as long. So I just found it easier for me to read off of something. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. Okay. Let's get into it. Many have said that the Nahanni Valley is one of the last truly unexplored places in the world. Situated within the rugged Northwest Territories of Canada, it's well over 500 kilometers or 311 miles or over 11,000 square feet. So this is a vast amount of land. I heard this comparison in another video before, but if you take the population of Germany, they have about 84 million people, and the Northwest Territories of Canada are like, I think, double the size of Germany, and they only have like a population of maybe 5,000 people or something like that. I might be mistaken. I can't remember if it was 5,000 or 50,000, but I'll correct it on here, which is insane because the Northwest Territories are a vast amount of land, and people have just not inhabited those areas or decided to build in those areas at all. One of the closest towns to the Nahanni Valley is Yellowknife, and there's also a local tribe that lives in Yellowknife, and I'll get into that a little bit later. It is one of those nooks that one would consider to be nature in its purest form, despite mankind's busy expansion in the surrounding areas. Reaching Nahanni can be a challenge. If you ever find a reason to journey inside it, it is hard to reach since there are no roads that lead to it. The best routes into it are via air, water, or a long overland hike from the abandoned village of Tungsten. Cities and civilizations up north are few and far between, and surviving the wilderness can be challenging or even fatal for the inexperienced traveler. Due to its remoteness, Nahanni Valley has remained largely untouched over the centuries. It is home to many diverse animal species, many of which are predatory. There are large grizzly bears and timber wolves, which are the chief carnivores here, and people are rarely seen in this nature. Historically, the lands around the Nahanni Valley, such as the Yellowknife areas, were home to the people of the Dene, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, the Dene indigenous tribes who dwelt here for many centuries. However, it seems that they never lived exactly along the Nahanni River and its tributaries, from which the Nahanni Valley gets its name. Their oral histories, passed down through generations, speak of another tribe living there, the one called Naha. The Dene tribe tell that the Naha were a warlike tribe living in the high mountains and descending into the lowlands to raid and kill. They became the main foes of the Dene peoples and were greatly feared by them. The name Nahanni itself is of Dene origin and means the river of the land of the Naha people. And there was another translation for it which meant those people over there. I don't know which one's the most accurate, but the name Nahanni came from the people of Dene because obviously the Naha people are no longer in that area. These oral histories and the name itself are very important as they are certain proof that a different indigenous tribe once dwelt here. However, the Dene tribe states that the Naha people simply vanished at one time, ceasing their raids and disappearing altogether. Mystery surrounds these so-called Naha, but no trace of them has ever been found. So far, they are only found in stories. Could they have migrated elsewhere, succumbed to a disease, died out, or have they simply stayed in the Nahanni River Valley to this very day, hiding in plain sight? Some speculate that it might be so. This mystery would likely have died out quickly, being dubbed just folklore of an indigenous tribe. But several eerie deaths and disappearances within the Nahanni Valley achieved the opposite result. The mysteries surrounding this place were only fueled further, and Nahanni became the focus of many mystery hunters. And most of this focus was on a special place within the valley, one called the 200-Mile Gorge. The Dene natives speak of an unknown evil dwelling there, and few ever enter it, especially because of the events that transpired there. For it's the 200-Mile Gorge that gained the grisly name of the Valley of the Headless Men. The origins of this eerie nickname can be traced to the early 1900s, at the time of the famous Klondike Gold Rush. At this time, many would-be prospectors wanted to test their fortunes and head out to the remote Canadian wilderness, especially Yukon. It was known to contain gold in its rivers and soils, and a treasure could be quickly made by those lucky enough to strike gold. 3 of these prospectors decided to forego the traditional routes and locations leading to Yukon and decided to instead try their luck in the Nahanni Valley. And that is because nobody was going to the Nahanni Valley because, as I said, it was very, very hard to get to, and nobody wanted to make that treacherous journey just to find gold there when they most likely could find gold in the Yukon area. So these 3 decided, let's take our own path and maybe we'll find even more gold than any other people Hap. They were 3 brothers, Charlie, Willie, and Frank McLeod. In 1904, they canoed upriver to reach the Nahanni Valley, and it was said that they made camp by the Flat River. Once they set up the camp, they went down to the river and they spent a good amount of time using their sluice boxes in the river to look for gold. And the sluice boxes are those typical flat kind of wood boxes that you see maybe in like movies, where you put it in the river and you push all the sediment into it, and it kind of filters out all the gold nuggets and pushes all the sediment out, and that way you only get left with the gold particles. And that's basically what their main tool they use to gather the gold in the rivers. So right away they luckily found lots of gold nuggets and filled up several containers with them. And they ended up doing the same thing in the next morning. Once all their containers were filled to the brim with gold, they decided that they should take it all back to town and turn it in, get some money for it, and then come back again. So they pack everything back up and get it on their boat, and then they get out onto Flat River. And at some point, very early into their journey back, the boat capsizes and breaks from the force of the rapids. The boat ends up sinking along with much of their supplies, as well as all of the gold they had gathered. And as I had said, this journey to the Nahanni Valley is not easy at all, including the options that you had. Like, if you were flying there, it was hard to find a place to land because of how lush it was. If you were rowing your boat there through a river canal, a lot of these rivers were not just like these flat little lazy rivers. There was parts of it that had rapids. That's why this Flat River name that they gave the river that these brothers went through, it's kind of like I guess like a joke you could say, I don't know, because it's not flat at all, and that's why their boat ended up being broken up by how strong these rapids were. And this is just a little wood boat that they had. They were all very devastated, but they were able to retrieve some of their supplies, including the sluice, a rifle, some lumber, and swam it back to shore. They gathered up the lumber and cut down a few trees as well, and they ended up fashioning themselves a new boat and went back up the Flat River to where they originally camped and tried to look for gold again. But this time they didn't find any more gold, so defeated, they decided to just set back to town. And so after they get back to town, they basically come back empty-handed, and that's why they ended up just leaving, because it was really hard to get in and out of this area, and it was just better overall to just leave and then maybe in the future come back. And that is exactly what Frank and Willie decided to do. They decided to return to try their luck, but their older brother, or the oldest brother, Charlie, didn't want to risk the journey after the close call they had already in that river, making their way in and out of it from those crazy rapids. So he decided not to go, but Frankie and Willie, along with a third companion by the name of Robert Wees, I think, set off to the Nahanni Valley without telling anyone how long they planned on staying. After months of not hearing from them, Charlie guessed that they had found lots of gold and perhaps decided to stay for the rest of the year. But as the second year approached without hearing from them, Charlie thought it would finally be time to arrange a search party and go look for them and see if they were okay. They just wanted to see if they can communicate with them and see if they can figure out if they were just going to stay in this area, make a house or something, and then come back to town later on once they had like tons and tons of gold and they were basically going to be rich. They just wanted to figure out what was going on. Okay, and then in 1906, 2 years later, a search party discovered their skeletons at the remains of a camp. Both of them were headless. Seemingly they were asleep when they were attacked. The body of one of the brothers lay reaching out towards a gun, indicating a need for defense. And he kind of had a blanket over him at the time, but you could see that his hand was outreaching to a rifle that was perched up on a tree. And then once they came upon this body, they took the blanket off and saw that there was no head to go with the body. And as for the third man, their companion, I think I said the wrong name in the beginning. It was Robert Weir, not Wees. I don't know, I think I got the names mixed up, but yeah, the other man, Robert Weir, he was still missing, so they never found his body. And then at some point later on, they actually found a third set of remains, also with their head missing, but it was like further up next to the flat river, but they never actually indicated if that was Robert's body or not. And they also kind of speculated that Robert killed the two brothers and then ran off with all of the gold and went into town and sold it and then disappeared, because obviously he probably had made a lot of money from that gold and left. But there's no actual proof of this happening, and since they found that third body, they thought that most likely he ended up dying as well, especially because everything that they used for the camp and, you know, their supplies and everything was still there when Charlie and that search party came to the camp. And it was in a different location than the first time that the brothers had gone there. It was past the fourth canyon, which are these like giant canyons that are beside the river, and there's a bunch of little caves on those canyons that nobody knows what's in those caves because they're super tall and no one has ever gone up there to explore them. But they were camped up on the side past those canyons where there's virtually no one else there. And so it's kind of hard to believe some of these other theories where people say that maybe they ran into other prospectors and they had some kind of feud and they ended up killing them, and you know, so on and so forth. Those are kind of some of the theories, but no one actually knows who did this or what happened to their heads, because people speculated that maybe some animal came across them, but why would they only take their head away and not just nibble at the little parts of their body, which also, you know, it wouldn't make sense for an animal to just take the skull. But anyway, from here on, the mysteries deepened. Who would decapitate so ruthlessly two peaceful prospectors, and what happened to their heads? Rumors began spreading and many wild theories were put forward. Theories floated about it until another corpse was discovered in 1917. It was that of a Swiss prospector named Martin Jorgensen. His body was discovered decapitated next to the remains of his cabin. It was burned to the ground. It is supposed that he struck gold in the vicinity as he wrote of it back home before ending up beheaded. And that's another one of the theories, is that someone in that area was kind of scoping out these prospectors, letting them do all the work of getting the gold, and then sneak attacking them and taking all of it and then killing them. But what was the need of beheading them, and what was the need of having to burn down their cabin? Also didn't really make sense to people. Okay, so as I said, those were the main story, was the one of the McLeod brothers and like their lost mine, and whether there was any gold that was left and maybe they never found it or someone else took it. And same thing goes with the one I just talked about for Martin Jorgensen. He had also, as I said, wrote out, or he was going to send out a letter letting them know that he had struck gold and there was a lot of it, and he was going to bring it back into town. And obviously that never happened, and that's why they went and looked for him. And then an article from the February 15th, 1947 issue of the Deseret News newspaper titled Headless Valley Myths Dispelled goes into depth while trying to bash all the mystery and find logic for the murders. Much of the article's contents are unsubstantiated and mere guesswork. There it is said that Jorgensen and the McLeod brothers were all murdered for the gold that they had discovered. No evidence for this was ever found, other than, the gold not being there. Then in 1927, another body was discovered in Nahanni, belonging to a man nicknamed Yukon Fisher. Variously dubbed an outlaw and a prospector, this man was sought by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for several years before his death. The officials found his skeleton on the banks of Bennett Creek, quite close to the place where the bodies of the McLeod brothers were found in 1906. His death was never fully explained, nor was the fact that he was known to possess a solid number of gold nuggets with which he purchased goods for on the frontier. So there was another man. I don't know about this one because they don't really give details as to how he ended up dying, but they found his body there too. And another thing that people said is that maybe they starved to death and that's all that they could really put together. And then in 1931, another body was found. This time it was that of Phil Powers. His charred remains were discovered in the ashes of what was his cabin, and the RCPM were quickly to attribute his death to a faulty stovepipe, but their explanation was repeatedly debunked by various sources. Phil Powers, for what it's worth, was likely murdered and his cabin set ablaze. Many others simply disappeared without a trace in the remote wilderness of the Nahanni River. In 1928, one prospector named Angus Hall ventured ahead of his party and was never seen again, and another pair of prospectors, Joe Mulholland and Bill Epier, disappeared in 1936. For many years they were searched for but never found. The only thing they discovered was their cabin, burned to the ground. And then a woman named Annie Lafayette also went missing in Nahanni. In 1926, with her hunting party, she was present in the valley near Flat River, but got lost in the wilderness and disappeared. Many months later, an Indian by the name of Big Charlie claimed to have seen the woman climbing a hill while totally naked, seemingly having lost her mind. She became just another of the many victims of the wild Nahanni Valley. With this specific story, the person that supposedly saw Annie had said that he was walking in this area like hunting, which is also another strange thing because people aren't really in this area very often. But I guess the Flat River is a little bit closer. I mean, it runs along further than just that Nahanni Valley area, I think. And so he was just walking around and he kept hearing like rocks falling off of an area. And then once he turned around to kind of see the source of this sound, he saw that this woman was like running on all fours. And that was the sound of the rocks were her hands when she was running, like, you know, doing this. She was throwing the rocks down and they were falling into the river. And he actually made eye contact with her and he had said that she looked possessed. Like he saw her eyes and it looked like there was nothing there. They just looked completely black. And she was kind of climbing up this canyon sort of thing, which was also another unnatural thing to do for her to be doing that and also being naked. Once they had spoken to him about whether he had seen the woman that was missing, they showed her a picture of Annie and he said that he thinks that that could have fit the description of this woman that was missing, but there was nothing really more that went from this. They kind of just dismissed it and they were like, you know, it's been months since she's been gone and she's most likely dead. And that's basically all they did with that information. So the Nahanni Valley was just so inhospitable that even in the 1920s, it was still unexplored. Maps of the region showed almost nothing except two flat lines that indicated the two main rivers, the Nahanni River and the Flat River. It would take decades for an accurate map to be created, and of course, over the years, many sources tried to discredit the mysteries. To that end, some claimed that the original headless corpses, the McLeod brothers, were not really headless, but in fact that they were identified by the remnants of the hair on the skulls. However, there is no evidence for either of the theories. Much of this can be attributed to the advanced age of the event, but discrediting it or not, deaths continue to pile up in Nahanni Valley. In 1945, a miner from Ontario, whose name is now lost, was found dead, still in his sleeping bag. His head, however, was never found, and he was right next to the Flat River as well. Around that time, another trapper succumbed to the inhospitable wilderness. His name was John O'Brien, who was found frozen next to his campfire, his rigid hands still clutching a match. His death was clearly due to freezing, but at the same time, this specific death was very odd because the campfire was still like okay to use, like the wood was dry, he still had matches. He wasn't in an uncomfortable position because most people who freeze to death are like curled up within themselves trying to conserve as much warmth as they can, or some of them have hypothermia and they end up naked somewhere, but he was just sitting there as if he were enjoying the fire, and it was as if he had been spontaneously frozen to death, like some kind of frost gust passed by and just froze him within an instant, because there was no signs of him just looking like he was in discomfort from freezing to death. Like, he was just sitting there propped up with his matches in his hand. So there was no indication of him freezing. Like, why did he just let himself freeze to death? Why not just make another fire? So that is why all of these deaths in the Nahanni Valley are so mysterious, because of course you can just chalk it up to be natural causes, or, you know, succumbing to the elements and so on and so forth. But everything else just kind of doesn't add up to those theories, you know, especially from all of the burned down cabins, all the people who ended up outside of their cabins like dead, and there was just no explanation for it. And there was another one that I don't think I jotted down, but there was another burned down cabin where the man inside of it was decapitated as well, or it looked like his head wasn't in the, like, it wasn't in the same area. Like, if he were to have just died from the fire and his skeleton would just be the only thing remaining, the head would still be like with the rest of his body, but it was kind of away from the rest of his body. And also it was said that the fire started from the roof, so it started from the top, worked its way down, which meant that if he was alive, he would have attempted to escape the cabin before it completely incinerated, but he didn't. He was just found inside of it, like charred, and it seemed like at some point the fire went out before his body completely turned into ashes. So that's how they were able to determine that he was in there, and that for some reason, instead of leaving the cabin while it caught on fire from top to bottom, it just didn't make any sense for him to have just stayed there and let himself get trapped in the fire. So yeah, there's so many different things that have happened in this valley, and why it has been given this very eerie nickname of Valley of the Headless Man, or Dead Man's Valley. I think there's a couple other nicknames for it, but it's just due to these stories and the tribes of the surrounding areas of the Nahanni Valley, because the Nahanni Valley is like, I forgot to mention this, but it's like right in the middle of the Northwest Territories, and so it's like a small chunk, and there's like a bunch of land surrounding the Nahanni Valley, and there's a few towns here and there, like, as I said, like Yellowknife and Yukon, and like all these other areas which are inhabited by people, and there's like an actual population and actual towns, and there's tribes in that area. And it's said that's like once in a while they pass through the Nahanni Valley or like its surrounding areas, and there was a search party for one of these people. I don't remember who they were looking for specifically, but they had come across them while they were camped out there, and the tribe actually warned them that there was white creatures that were being seen in that area, and they were telling them to be careful or to get out of there as fast as they could, because they didn't know what these creatures were capable of. They just kind of gave them a warning that they shouldn't be there because of these white creatures roaming the area. And this obviously creeped out the search party very much, because they had no other choice but to stay there, because they were searching for somebody, and that was their job, and that's what they were doing at the moment. But this really creeped them out. And then for the rest of the night, all they kept hearing throughout the night was like these howls and this yelling, and it all sounded very far away, but it kind of sounded like some kind of warning, like some kind of threat for them to leave. And that's the first thing they did in the morning, after spending the whole night hearing these howls and screams and yells that sounded more like distorted and more human-like than animal-like. And after just hearing that for the whole night, as I said, they were like, nope, we are out of here. And they took up all their stuff from the camp, and they just called the search off, kind of saying, there's no way we're gonna find this person in this vast amount of land, which is also something so terrifying to have experienced, and having somebody walk up to you and be like, you should probably leave, because there's some stuff unknown here that even the tribes who probably have been here for generations and generations, they probably don't even know what what is roaming out here in the Nahanni Valley. It's so much land that nobody has touched, and it's like in pristine condition because there hasn't been humans who have wanted to make that hike up there or that flight up there, you know. And so we will never know what else there is in the Northwest Territories. Like, we just won't know like what kind of creatures live there or what kind of animals live there. It's too hard for people to go up there and try to discover or explore those areas. But that is basically it for the Nahanni Valley and the story of the McLeod brothers and everybody else who has gone missing or who has died there. I hope that you guys enjoyed hearing all of these stories. I found this so fascinating because whenever there's uncharted territories, I always just wonder of all the possibilities there are of there being creatures that we have never seen before. Same thing with the ocean, you know, it's just so vast that we will never explore it 100%. You know, in all of these years, it's just going to be so impossible to ever come up with the technology to do that. It was very intriguing for me to read about this and see all of the different things that have happened in the Nahanni Valley, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it as well. Let me know what you think about this, like what your theories are about what could potentially be going down in this area. Do you guys think it's some kind of animal or something more supernatural, some kind of folklore that is actually true? Because I think some of the tribes down there have their own kind of folklore. Like there's like a certain wolf that they believe in as well that lives in that area. It's like this white wolf, and I don't know if that's what they were referring to when they said, when one of those tribes said that there was some white creatures out there. Or if they just meant Caucasian people, I don't know. But yeah, guys, that is going to be it. This was a little bit on the longer side. I don't know how long I've been recording for now. I think, yeah, 40 minutes. There was a lot to unpack here. And I just, the more that I look into the Nahanni River, the more things that come out. And sorry, I've been blabbering for way too long now. That is it from me, you guys. Thank you so much for watching if you made it all the way to the end. And if you did make it all the way to the end, leave a little mountain emoji. That way I know who stayed all the way to this point. And if you did, I really, really appreciate you. And we are besties. Yes, we are. Okay, guys, thank you so much. And also, oh, I almost forgot. What am I doing? Today's comment shout out goes to this person right here. Thank you so much for leaving a nice comment. As always, I really do appreciate it, and it really makes my day. Even if you want to be in the next comment shout out, all you have to do is leave me a nice comment down below, and that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to stay safe and be kind. Bye bye.